The following conversation is with Ted Treanor. Ted is a co-founder and the managing partner of Seven Generations. Seven Generations is a partner with the Native American tribes all across North America to help them in support of a healthy economy and a healthy community. And so for me, this was just a fascinating discussion just to learn more about, the tribal culture, what their needs are right now, what are still some of the reoccurring challenges they face, but also too, what are some areas of excitement that we should all celebrate as more of the indigenous cultures are able to take advantage of advances in regenerative agriculture, biodiversity, and advances in agriculture technology. So I'm excited to be able to share this one with you all. I'm Don Davidson. This is the Regenerative Agriculture Club podcast, and please enjoy my conversation with Ted Treanor. Hey everyone, today I have the privilege of hanging out with Ted Treanor from Seven Generations. Ted, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here to share the work that you're doing with Seven Generations, and I cannot wait to learn more about what you and the team are doing.
Thank you, Don. Look forward to it.
Great. Well, I'm looking through the website here, so I'm on your About page, and it says right off the first sentence, Seven Generations' vision for Indian country is to realize it by contributing to each tribe's sovereignty, independence, and resilience for local food, energy, housing, health, and wellness, and economic development. That is a noble mission right there. I applaud you for that, and I imagine you and the team do not have any boring days.
We're very passionate about that, and it's what gets us up in the morning and drives us, through the pandemic.
I get that. Well, before we jump into the specifically the work of Seven Generations, I want to hear a little bit more, just kind of about your personal journey. Like, how did you fall into this space? Did you have just like a natural intrinsic motivation when you were younger in this area? I'm curious to learn more about that.
I started as a sort of a pure entrepreneur spirit of trying to create, develop, generate jobs and that sort of thing. And I really had a huge number of incredible mentors in my career, and that was really a godsend from the start. From my grandfather was big in the Seattle area in business and started multiple businesses and family with startups, and I worked all through high school at the family company and so in the music industry. My journey started really straight out of college. I was a real estate developer without having any experience whatsoever. And we found that you learn every day. You solve problems, you have a great number of challenges, and I learned that I was able to problem solve. And even though I didn't know anything about something, I could learn very quickly and sit at the table with world experts and contribute, which was real, for a young guy in his 20s, it was really pretty phenomenal. But I started in 1,000+ acre expansion out of Silicon Valley that I dreamed up, controlled the property, and got international partners, just sort of this collaborative process and massive problem solving. And that's really carried me through my entire career. It led me to a long real estate career. I found that, by the 80s, I'm sitting at the table trying to get permits, and every development job, and particularly in California, was even worse. It's worse earlier down there, getting entitlements. But what I found is that you'd have the environmentalists at the table, and because they pretty much disagree with every project, certainly at the time, and I was agreeing with them, so they didn't know how to handle that. Here's the evil developer at the table, and I'm agreeing that we got to do things sustainably. So that carried me into the 90s, and I believed very strongly. I've been a pioneer in multiple industries, so I believed in the e-commerce in '93 as the web came to life. That it was going to change the world, and that I could bring my Silicon Valley experience up to Seattle. And we had Microsoft already there and some other technology companies. And I believed that we could be a leader in the world in e-commerce. And during that time, I formed the Electronic Commerce Resource Center with ARPA, Department of Defense. Had a 7-year run at training and educating the supply chains and the prime contractors like Boeing and REI, and gave them counsel and advice. And, we just knew we were like 1 week ahead of everybody else. That was about it. So you're really learning as you go. But, it was a real roller coaster ride in the 90s, and I felt really good about creating jobs, massive amount of jobs, and being a part of the history of e-commerce, like I was in Silicon Valley. And then I went into, I formed a water company, industrial cleaning, recycling, reuse. And so I got pretty passionate about the water part of things. I went on to form a digital publishing platform for the book publishing industry in the 2000s, and rode that ride with the ebooks. And by that time, sort of all the experience with real estate, which touches a great deal of society, political, and, the brick and mortar had already had the digital experience, and sort of brought that all together and started working with tribes and with clean energy. Clean energy really was something that I would believe that would dramatically change the world and the status quo. So frankly, at that point, the tribes became really through some friends that brought me into the Quinault Indian Nation on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington. And we did a complete business plan and developed a plan for energy independence within a 5-year period, and showed them how they could possibly do that. That led me to meeting my current partners in 7 generations, and had a lot of energy experience within the group, and Indian country experience. So we sort of agreed to combine our efforts and move forward from there. With Indian country, becoming a trusted advisor to tribes is very, very difficult to achieve that. I wasn't born in it, so it takes many generations to generally have family status in Indian country, and we've been able to achieve that in my lifetime, which I am very grateful for.
That's great. So approximately what year then were you starting to work with the tribes?
About 2013, 2011 to 2013, right in there. It was just sort of touching on it then, and then became more engaged with economic development projects and the fish industry and other aspects of economic development.
So how do you contrast that? I'm curious, like in terms of just trends, since the tribes really have been an underserved population as it relates to whether it's access to funding options or just rather other awareness support measures. I'm curious, just from your expertise and experience, how would you contrast from where you started working with the tribes back then, what that kind of looked like, and what was available to them versus what's evolving to now with other opportunities?
Wow, that's a great set of questions. It's a very strategic process that I went through. It's like analyzing where's the growth, where's you have to look at in going back to Silicon Valley. What I had to do is I actually went over and met with the vice president of development for Hewlett Packard, because they started it all. And over in Menlo Park, and I went there and interviewed him, and I got incredible history and knowledge on how that all took place and what it takes. The dynamics of having the Stanford University was a real spark, and it couldn't have happened in the same way. And I did the same thing with the tribes. Their history, they called their opportunity with their natural resources was sort of their sustenance. But then when they 25, 30 years ago, when they got rights to do the gaming, it was an opportunity for the new Buffalo. So it was an economic development opportunity for them, and they took advantage of that, and it's helped them lift them up economically. and provided jobs. So there's pluses and minuses. Everybody knows that. It's in industries, the tobacco, liquor, and gambling, but they had limited choices in a lot of remote sites. So I looked at the natural resources that they had, and they were underutilized. I believe that the new renewable energy, because they had the land, that farming, agriculture, agroforestry could be better utilized, because in most places, most cases, they only get the land lease, and it's negotiated by the government at a really low rate. So they never come out. The justice is not built into the system. So helping them to connect with off-reservation technologies and ideas and other resources, which is what we did. What we've done is we've bridged that gap for off-reservation. They know their land, they know what they can do, but just trading on reservation doesn't build wealth. And so what we tried to do was to bring national and international resources to Indian country and help them to connect to the marketplace. So if we could leverage their renewable energy, they could be a major player in the emerging industrial hemp marketplace and other leading, evolving opportunities, and they could be a first mover, which I tend to be. So those are the opportunities that I bring to the tribes, and then we can take care of the historic shortfall of the food deserts, the nutrition, and the shelter, those things. So if you have energy, water, food, and shelter, you pretty well covered the 7 generations targets and the highest needs in Indian country.
So for somebody that's not aware of what 7 generations is all about, whether it's another tribe out there or just non-tribe individuals, what's the overview of what is 7 generations and what is it that you all do?
We partner with tribes wherever we can. We don't force the opportunities to have to go to tribes, but that's our mission, and we're pretty successful at being able to do that. So what we've done is we've identified, based on what the tribes need, which I just explained, those are our 5 verticals. It has to do, well, it really it's the overarching one is health, because if you look at every food and energy, water, and shelter, it's really boils down to health. And that's what we, in a way, we view our company as a health company, but promote it that way. But as the tribes are, Native Americans, they want to know about the sustainability of a product. Is it a forever material that never goes away and it causes pollution? You start talking about housing and they want to know what the materials are, which would be nice that off reservation people were doing more of that. So I think that's really what we do. We partner essentially ultimate ownership of the projects or businesses. By design, we will sunset out of the investment over time, and they can buy us out, but it's whatever is in their best interest and they want to do. So we don't have one way to do it, and we say this is the way we do it. We look at what the tribe and the culture dictates that we do, and some don't. They're looking for the income. They're not necessarily have the expertise to run that business. They want a management team in place and they want it long term. Well, that's fine. We can do that. So we bring in the top people for any particular industry and investment, including the capitalization part of it.
Are there any just specific case studies, like success stories that have happened in recent years that you'd be willing to share?
Well, we have a lot in the pipeline right now. So by design, we're all about doing due diligence and reducing risk before we make a recommendation. Well, that eliminates an awful lot of potential opportunities. And as you know, in the hemp industry, there's a lot of people that rushed in and think it was going to be great, including some tribes, even in Oregon, have just a lot of money has been wasted. So I can safely say that none of our opportunities ever went to fruition to fail in the marketplace because it didn't meet the litmus test. And so now we'll reach that point where we have designed upwards of 40 projects with a large tribe in the Southwest. We're starting with some energy projects initially, but we have land restoration, soil restoration, we have water projects, housing, and factories. And each one of them has been mostly, for the most part, over the last 5 years, we have vetted those and more in the process and eliminated the risk, and we have found the right operating partners. So we're at that point of execution. Makes this 2022 a really exciting year.
What's the geographic footprint? I mean, so would it be open to tribes of any geography within let's say, the U.S., Canada area?
We've been mostly focused on the North America, First Nations and Native Americans. We have partners in Canada, the leading industry players that are progressive and really well aligned with bringing more jobs and more economic opportunity to First Nations. One of my partners, who's done a lot of utility scale solar in South America. We have many connections down there, but we have opportunities. We've been asked to be a leader in a global platform for Indigenous people, and I'm finally ready to have that serious conversation and see how that will be capitalized because it comes with capital. And we've just had so many reach outs, and the news has been so full of the solution for climate crisis is to embrace the indigenous wisdom and with the modern technologies and kind of combine those for solving this problem. Because if it's just a technology solution, we're in trouble. That's a bad bet.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I can see that. What are the biggest challenges that you see the tribes currently facing today?
I would say it's mostly about scale right now because the urgency of the climate crisis is upon us, and executing as you would in a normal year and normal scale does to address those issues is way short of what we need across the globe. So I put that urgency as the biggest challenge of humankind. And so it's hard not to say that the tribes don't have that same issue because they're the ones that were voicing long before anyone else that of the problems they were seeing because they're connected to nature and they live off of the natural resources. And so they saw it first. We need to take that wisdom and go at scale globally. And I think that's what's in the process of happening right now on a very slow basis, and we want to accelerate that.
That leads into my next question quite well. What excites you the most with what Seven Generations is doing with the tribes, and what you're likely going to be able to accomplish in the next few years ahead?
What I'm excited about is that the marketplace has moved towards us, and that's a lot less effort and it compresses time. So that's why we have accelerated everything going into this year after a couple of really tough years, for everyone. And so it appears that there's a number of key elements that have come into place that will facilitate, be the right resources that we need in order to achieve that. And I think the right kind of capital, the impact capital, the marketplaces, even Wall Street is willing to fund green infrastructure projects and carbon. They may not have the heart of doing it for all the right reasons, but it's okay. We need a lot of capital to shift over to these issues, and starting with North America, and to be the example of what the world needs to do, and then bring in the indigenous people around the world to have those impacts on, some are very focused on the oceans and the shorelines with the mangroves and the marshes, oysters, all the aquaculture, and fishing and what have you, but also bringing in the land and restoring and regenerating the soil, the health of the soil, which is extremely depleted. Approach it on a holistic basis, and I think that's what I like, that long view, the 1,000-year view, not 10 year.
And the tribes, I imagine, the tribal culture. I mean, of anybody that's out there, they probably have the healthiest long-term view out there.
Yes, indeed. So I think it's the right model. It's going to be unique. It's never been done before. For because we've never been in this mess, and we the Europeans came in and took over pristine continent, and then move forward and said the ignorant natives don't know what they're doing, and the informed, and the science-based folks realize that, living in one with nature is essential for the health of the planet. And the health of the planet is our life support system for humans. So, and Native Americans and indigenous people, that's ingrained in them. They don't have, I don't think I've ever come up that they have a word for sustainability. It's just a way of life.
That's fascinating. Yeah, if they don't have an exact word, that it's just more like a state of being. That's there's a lot to think about there.
Indeed. Well, it's been a fun ride, and what I found is that we're having more engagement with broader audiences, from universities, from NGOs, from the capital markets. I get inquiries almost every day, and we're not. That website's 2.5 years old. I haven't been updated, so a lot of what I'm telling you is not even on that website. So we will update it, and we will keep people informed. And I post a fair amount of what we're doing on LinkedIn, so that's a good resource. But I find that having the different market segments as the entire supply chains of industries, the universities, the NGOs, the government agencies like USDA, these are all important players that have a role. And if everybody stays in their lane and then works together to collaborate to bring more to the table to have successful pilots, successful growth of industries, that's what I'm really jazzed about, because I see it now. I see all the pieces, I see all the players that can make the difference. And we're in great conversations with many of them that want to do, unlike any time in history, they want to do it big because of the impact. It's about how many gigatons of greenhouse gases a year will this idea address. They don't want small stuff. I mean, there's an opportunity. Every little bit helps, and I'm not saying anything other than that. I am glad for people that homeowners that recycle anything that they can possibly do, or bicycle. I mean, all of that's important. But we're working on scale. At the economic table, we're trying to connect the indigenous people to have some economic justice and be valued for the great contribution that they can play in history right now.
Ted, I don't think that there could be a better way to cap off this whole conversation other than with what you've just said. So I'm going to put it right there. So definitely want our listeners to go check out the Seven Generations website at 7gnative.com. We'll also link that up along with ways to follow Ted and his work on LinkedIn. And Ted, keep us posted. I'm just grateful for all that you are doing with the tribal culture.
Thank you. It's been great to have your interest and your platform. And if there's anything that I can do, for your podcast, just let me know. I'd be delighted to get more exposure for, all the folks that you interview that are doing the hard work out there. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ted. All right.